They called it impossible fantasy, a waste of money, a fool's errand that belonged in science fiction novels, not serious laboratories. But in a freezing London attic in January 1926, surrounded by bicycle lamps, hat boxes, and knitting needles held together with sealing wax, a Scottish engineer named John Logie Baird was about to prove every skeptic catastrophically wrong. The demonstration he was preparing would rewrite human communication forever. Yet the scientists invited to witness it arrived expecting to mock a charlatan. What they saw instead left them speechless. This is the story of how British ingenuity, sheer bloody-mindedness, and salvaged junk changed the world. Whilst radio crackled through Britain's sitting rooms and silent films flickered in darkened cinemas, Baird proposed something that sounded like alchemy, transmitting moving pictures through thin air. Not photographs sent by wire, that already existed. Not static images projected onto screens, cinema had conquered that. No, Baird wanted to send live moving images of human faces across space, in real time, wirelessly. The scientific establishment responded with withering disdain. If you could see wireless sound waves, skeptics argued, perhaps you could see wireless light. But you cannot. Light requires a physical medium. The physics simply did not permit it. By 1923, Baird was working from a boarding house in Hastings, penniless, recovering from chronic illness that had plagued him since childhood. He'd failed at multiple business ventures, selling soap, manufacturing socks, even attempting to create pneumatic shoes. His health was so poor that doctors had written him off. Yet, in that freezing seaside town, he'd become obsessed with an idea. If Marconi could send sound wirelessly, why not light? The principle was the same. Radio waves carried audio information. Surely electromagnetic waves could carry visual information. Every physicist he consulted told him he was wasting his time. Large corporations with proper funding had already concluded it was impossible. A sick, broke Scotsman working in a rented room with second-hand equipment hadn't a prayer. Baird's breakthrough came from revisiting a German patent from 1884. Paul Nipkow had designed a rotating disc punched with holes arranged in a spiral pattern. As the disc spun, each hole would scan across a different horizontal line of an image, top to bottom. Shine bright light on a subject, let that light pass through the spinning holes, and you could slice the image into sequential lines of information. The varying brightness of each line could be converted into electrical signals by a photosensitive cell. At the receiving end, reverse the process, convert the electrical signals back into light, shine that light through an identical spinning disk, and you'd reconstruct the image, in theory. Nipkow never built a working model. The technology didn't exist yet, but by 1924, it did, barely. Looking at the Science Museum's preserved apparatus, you see the genius of desperation. Baird had no funding, no laboratory, no precision instruments. He cut a scanning disc from a hat box, simple cardboard. He fitted 16 lenses salvaged from bicycle lamps into 2 half spirals on the disc. He mounted this contraption on a tea chest containing an old electric motor, using darning needles as axles and sealing wax as adhesive. The motor turned the disc. A brilliant light, dangerously bright, illuminated his test subject. As the disc rotated, light reflecting off the subject passed through the lenses into Baird's secret weapon, a photosensitive cell that converted light intensity into electrical current. That varying electrical signal was his television broadcast. The technical specifications reveal how impossibly crude this was. Baird's system achieved 30 lines of vertical resolution. Modern high-definition television uses 1080 lines. His system ran at 12.5 frames per second. Cinema ran at 24, and your eye perceives smooth motion above 16 frames per second, so Baird's images flickered noticeably. The whole signal bandwidth was just 26,250 picture elements per second, laughable by today's standards, yet it worked. On the 2nd of October 1925, Baird successfully transmitted the first recognizable moving image of a human face. The test subject wasn't human, it was a ventriloquist's dummy head he'd nicknamed Stooky Bill, because the intense light required would have burned human skin. But the image was unmistakable. If you think history books have overlooked this, hit the like button right now to help us bring these untold British stories to light. Baird needed to test his system on an actual human being. He burst out of his laboratory and found William Tainton, a 20-year-old office worker from the building, and offered him 2 shillings and 6pence, half a crown, to sit before the apparatus. Tainton agreed, though he later recalled sweating profusely under the blazing lights whilst Baird operated the equipment out of sight, shouting encouragement. The transmission worked. For the first time in history, a living human face had been sent through space and reconstructed remotely. Tainton became the first person ever to appear on television. Baird was so excited, Tainton later remembered, that words didn't come. By November 1924, Baird had moved to London, renting 2 attic rooms at 22 Frith Street in Soho. The building still stands today, marked with a blue plaque. These rooms became his laboratory, workshop, and prison. He worked obsessively, often going days without proper sleep or meals. The equipment remained laughably makeshift: hat boxes, biscuit tins, bullseye lenses from bicycle lamps, sealing wax, and glue purchased from the local Woolworths. Fellow tenants complained about the noise from his motors and the strange flickering lights. His landlord nearly evicted him after an electrical explosion blew the fuses for the entire building. On the 26th of January 1926, Baird invited approximately 40 members of the Royal Institution of Great Britain to witness his demonstration at 22 Frith Street. These were not casual observers. These were distinguished scientists, engineers, and journalists, the very people who dismissed mechanical television as impossible. According to reports, they arrived in evening dress, responding to Baird's invitation with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Many expected to witness an elaborate hoax, or at best a crude optical illusion. The Times of London sent a reporter, hedging their bets in case something newsworthy actually occurred. Baird demonstrated his televisor system. In one room, the transmitting apparatus illuminated Stooky Bill's dummy head. The rotating disc scanned the image line by line. The photosensitive cell converted reflected light into electrical signals. Those signals traveled via wire to the receiving apparatus in the adjacent room. There, the electrical signals controlled a neon lamp shining through an identical spinning disc onto a frosted glass screen. The audience gathered around the small screen, approximately the size of a postcard, and watched. A flickering, ghostly image appeared, the recognizable features of Stooky Bill's face, moving in real time as Baird manipulated the dummy. The resolution was terrible, the flicker was nauseating, but it was unmistakably a transmitted moving image. It was television.
The Times reported the demonstration the following day, somewhat cautiously, noting that Baird had successfully transmitted recognizable images. Other publications were less restrained. The demonstration vindicated Baird's years of ridicule. Scientists who had dismissed him as a fantasist now had to confront the apparatus sitting in front of them, crude but functional. Within weeks, Baird was demonstrating his system publicly at Selfridge's department store on Oxford Street. Ordinary Londoners queued to see television for the first time. The parlor trick had become a sensation. But Baird's mechanical system faced immediate competition. By the early 1930s, companies like Marconi EMI were developing fully electronic television using cathode ray tubes, no spinning discs, no mechanical parts, just electrons scanned across a phosphorescent screen. Baird himself had famously declared in 1931, "There is no hope for television by means of cathode ray tubes." He was spectacularly wrong. Electronic television could achieve far higher resolution and frame rates. Baird's mechanical approach was a technological dead end. History would not be kind to his chosen method. Yet history cannot erase what he achieved first. On the 2nd of November 1936, the BBC officially launched the world's first regular high-definition television service from Alexandra Palace in North London. In a remarkable decision, the BBC installed two competing systems in separate studios. Studio A housed the Marconi EMI electronic system with its sophisticated emitron cameras, producing 405 lines of resolution. Studio B contained Baird's mechanical system, still using spinning discs and dangerous banks of chemicals. The two systems alternated broadcasts week by week in a live competitive trial. On a coin toss, Baird's system inaugurated the service, but within 3 months, the BBC's decision was made. The Marconi EMI system was vastly superior. Studio B was shut down. Baird's mechanical television was abandoned. Yet Baird had one final vindication. On the 12th of May, 1937, the BBC broadcast the coronation of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the first major live outside broadcast in television history. The technical challenge was immense. Mobile transmission vans, signal relay via post office cables, cameras positioned along the coronation route. Approximately 10,000 television sets existed in Britain at the time, mostly within the London transmission area. An estimated 50,000 people watched the coronation live on television, in their homes, in shop windows, in public viewing rooms. This was the moment television transcended laboratory curiosity and became a mass medium. The technology used was largely electronic, not mechanical, but the broadcast would not have existed without Baird's decade of advocacy, demonstration, and relentless insistence that television was possible. Baird never stopped inventing. He developed the first publicly demonstrated color television system in 1928. He achieved the first transatlantic television transmission the same year. He pioneered 3D television, infrared night vision imaging systems, and early video recording systems. His mechanical approach may have been superseded, but his vision of a world where moving images could be transmitted instantly across any distance became reality. He died in 1946, aged just 58, his health finally failing after a lifetime of illness and relentless work. He was buried in Helensburgh, Scotland, the town where he was born. Today, over 1.7 billion television sets exist worldwide. Streaming services, video calls, live broadcasts from every corner of the planet, all descendants of that flickering image of Stooky Bill in a Soho attic. The engineers who dismissed Baird's system as a parlor trick were technically correct. Mechanical television was obsolete almost from the moment it was demonstrated, but they missed the larger point. Baird didn't just build a machine, he shattered the assumption that wireless visual transmission was impossible. He proved the principle. He forced the world to reckon with the future. He opened a window into every home on Earth. Tell us in the comments, is this man the greatest engineer Britain forgot? I read every single one of your responses. The next time you glance at your phone screen, watch a live football match, or video call a relative on the other side of the world, remember the penniless Scottish inventor working in a freezing attic with cardboard, hat boxes, and bloody-minded determination. Remember the scientists who came to mock and stayed to witness history. Remember the man they dismissed, ridiculed, and underestimated, until he brought the world into every home.
Subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden history of British innovation, and watch this next video on Alan Turing's secret wartime contributions to see how the story of forgotten British genius continues.